All right, welcome into One of One Sports. We did the ACC tournament prediction video. We did the SEC tournament prediction video. It's time to do the Big 12 tournament predictions. I think this is going to be one of the more fun conference tournaments, right up there with the SEC, because I think there's just been so many competitive teams in the league. So getting right into it, starting with what I think is probably the easiest pick of the first round, and that is TCU over Colorado. Colorado had a decent start to the year, upset UConn and Maui, but since then has just not been a good team whatsoever and has clearly been the bottom of the Big 12. Give me TCU there. And then a minor upset picking the 13 over the 12. I like Cincinnati better than Oklahoma State. They've been a little disappointing this year considering they had, I think, were preseason top 25 team, really had tournament expectations. Probably aren't going to get there unless, of course, they win this bracket. But I do still think they're a pretty solid team and better than Oklahoma State. Moving down to ASU versus Kansas State, another disappointing team in Arizona State, considering what was a really promising start to the season, what was a great freshman recruiting class with guys like Joseph Sanan, Jaden Quaintance. But after like that first 10, 12 game stretch, this has been a really bad team. Kansas State had the opposite, was really bad early. They've been better, or they got a lot better in the middle, and then have been kind of mediocre towards the back end. But I do think with Doug McDaniel, with Hawkins, their other guard, I forget his name, but he's a shooter. I like Kansas State better than ASU. And then what maybe is the toughest game to pick between, I think, two pretty evenly matched teams in UCF and Utah. I haven't watched a ton of UCF, but when I did, it seemed like a similar caliber of team to when I've seen Utah play. And Utah's coach just got fired, so I could see him coming out flat or energized. I lean more towards the energized side of things, and that's why I am going to go with Utah to advance to the second round. Back up top between TCU and West Virginia. If West Virginia was fully healthy and had the coach's son, I always forget how to pronounce his name. I think it's DeVries, though. He's a really good player, was maybe the best player up there with Javon Small on this West Virginia team. Even without him, I like West Virginia to beat TCU, but certainly they could have been so much of a bigger threat if they were fully healthy. Then Iowa State and Cincinnati. Iowa State, when fully healthy and playing up to potential, is like a championship level team, in my opinion. If Keyshawn Gilbert's there and Curtis Jones is there and Milan Momcilovic is there and Lipsy and Jefferson and the whole squad's healthy, when they play well together, they can beat anybody in the country. I don't think they go out in round one, especially considering the history of Iowa State's performances in the Big 12 tournament as recently as last year, winning the whole thing with a lot of these same players. Coming down between Baylor and Kansas State, probably the toughest game for me to pick in this round, and I went with Baylor. Baylor's been disappointing for me. I thought they had Final Four potential in the preseason. I think I even picked them as one of my Final Four teams just because I thought their guard play would be so good with Roach and Nunn and Edgecombe and Langston Love. And it's been solid, but the issues on the inside with Omier as your only big really have been a problem, and the guard play hasn't been as elite as I thought it would be. But I do still think they're good enough to get a major win, to be pretty safe to get because they're kind of on the bubble now with how their season ended. I think you need a win here to be fully safe. I think you get it, beat Kansas State, and then I think Kansas beats Utah. I know it's been a down year for the Jayhawks, but I can't like it's impressive that considering this is a down year and they'll still be a 7 or 8. Like that just goes to show the standard Bill Self has set. And I do still think they're a better team than Utah. They beat Arizona to end the year. Hunter Dickinson played great. You hope he continues that. And I think they kind of can. And I think Kansas will win this first round game. Moving on to the third round, an easy pick for Houston for me. They rolled through the Big 12. Your only loss coming at home in overtime to Texas Tech, the 2 seed, beating everyone else in the conference. Perfect on the road. I mean, I can't pick against this team, especially not in their first game of the conference tournament. Got to go with Houston there, a true, like, legit national title threat. And then BYU and Iowa State, a rematch of what was just one of the best games I saw all year. Went to overtime between these teams. So, I mean, clearly they're pretty evenly matched. And I think it might have even gone double overtime if I'm remembering right. But Igor Denham of BYU played really well. Is it Hall? I think it's Hall was pretty good. Obviously, they have Kanon Catchings on the wing. It's a really good BYU team, but I don't think they're good enough because I think Iowa State, like I said, has a history of performing really well in this tournament. And now that they're fully healthy, I do think they're a better team than BYU. And if they've been fully healthy throughout, Big 12 play would be higher on the seeding. Coming down to Texas Tech and Baylor, this is an easy Texas Tech for me. I think JT Toppin will give Baylor major problems on the inside. I could see Omier getting into foul trouble and then just like it being going downhill from there. And I think Texas Tech does a good enough job defensively to limit guys like Edgecombe and Baylor's guards from like over like if Baylor because Baylor has to win the guard matchups. And I think Texas Tech can limit them enough and has good enough guards of their own to where that's close to a wash. And I think Texas Tech clearly wins on the inside with JT Toppin. And then coming down, Arizona, Kansas State, a game we just saw in the last game of the regular season. Kansas won that one at home. I think Arizona wins this one at a neutral site. It was a really competitive game in Lawrence on senior night. I think there was a lot of motivation for Kansas, and Arizona was still right there. I think Arizona can win this one. I think they need this wouldn't be a huge one, but I think you need to get at least one win in this tournament to feel decent about how you're looking in March. And the team, I think, was better than Kansas throughout Big 12 play. I expect them to get the win here. They do have the size to control Dickinson, even though they didn't last game. The potential is there. And if Caleb Love can play well, they can definitely win this game and even more going forward. Back up top, what would be, I really hope we get this game, a rematch of last year's Big 12 championship, a game Iowa State destroyed Houston. So I think there's an element, maybe Houston's looking for revenge, but I do think there's an element of this Iowa State team matches up well with Houston. We saw the one game they played this year at Houston with an Iowa State team missing two scorers. They were still very competitive and pushed Houston. Now a fully healthy Iowa State at a neutral site, I think they match up well with Houston. I think they'll be able to put up points, give Houston enough problems defensively, and I think pull the upset and actually advance to the Big 12 final. I know Houston has only lost one Big 12 game. They've been great all year. I still think they'll be a one seed and are the best team in the Big 12, but I don't think they match up the best with Iowa State. I think Iowa State has so many different ways to score that even Houston's elite defense won't be able to limit them enough. I have the Cyclones. And then coming down, I have Texas Tech beating Arizona. They split the regular season series, but I think Arizona is not playing their best basketball this season. I know I had them beating Kansas, but I don't think Kansas like a great team either. I think Texas Tech has like continued to improve. They're like a top tier team now. Arizona is they're kind of inconsistent for me. And when it comes to a tournament style thing, consistency is going to come through for me. You have the best player in the game in JT Toppin. I like the Red Raiders setting up a final between the 2 seed in Texas Tech and the 5 seed in Iowa State. What would be a really great matchup. Some really good players. Anderson, McMillan, Toppin on Texas Tech, assuming they're fully healthy. Gilbert and Jones and Momcilovic and Lipsey and Jefferson for Iowa State. And what I was just saying about consistency, Iowa State has not been as consistent as the Red Raiders. I think they have a higher ceiling than the Red Raiders. I think they have a better roster and more talent than the Red Raiders, higher potential. But Texas Tech has been more consistent throughout the season. Iowa State, it's been a little up and down. And do I see them winning 4 straight games to win the Big 12 championship? I don't. Give me Texas Tech to be your Big 12 conference champions. Let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And if you think someone else wins the Big 12, make sure to leave it in the comment sections down below. I thank you all for watching. Until next time.